in prison, and you're big in prison.
I've never been to prison.
You have
19 felonies,
times.
no convictions. Knock it off. Prison and jail aren't the same. No.
In 2005 to 2008, right in there, Katt, we were looking at Katt like, wow.
He's so good.
When people are against the Illuminati, then they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them.
Imagine grinding your way from the bottom, stacking an empire from pure hustle, shutting down arenas, turning one HBO night into a wild 40% ratings jump, and pushing an independent comedy DVD all the way to platinum, only to wake up one day and see the headlines quietly flipping your whole identity from prodigy to problem. It hits different when the world switches your label without warning. From 2008 to 2016, Katt Williams wasn't just booked or photographed. He was getting dragged through courtroom after courtroom so often that even entertainment reporters stopped trying to keep count. But when you slow down, pull the receipts, and study what actually happened, a whole other picture pops out. Official records show multiple arrests and charges across Georgia in 2016 alone, from a pool store situation in Gainesville on February 29th to a heated dispute over a cell phone and property claims a few weeks later. And every time, things wrapped up with negotiated pleas or dropped counts instead of real convictions. That pattern says a lot. And when you stack everything together instead of just staring at mugshots, the story shifts even more. Court logs list at least 11 civil assault cases tied to Katt since 2008. Stuff involving bar run-ins, entourage clashes, and people saying he made certain threats. When you add it all up, it stops looking like one performer spiraling and starts looking like a whole system that found it way too easy to turn him into a non-stop headline machine. You can see how fast that image locked in if you rewind to Woodland, California, late November 2012, when security footage showed Katt in a red hoodie tapping a 19-year-old store worker in the face and then sprinting straight out the door. Within days, that clip exploded online, getting replayed non-stop on Sacramento news like it was the only story in the city. But hidden under all the memes and quick jokes were details most folks never heard. The worker later told CBS that he had just been fired with zero explanation and that everything kicked off when Katt tried to buy his personal motorcycle helmet. The whole situation only turned tense after a long, heated back and forth, not some random outburst. Years later, Katt claimed in an interview that the S-slap happened after a racial remark, a version his supporters still quote to this day. But even with that, the district attorney only hit him with a misdemeanor battery charge. No major sentence, no dramatic prison storyline. Still, the moment crushed his brand overnight, becoming one more incident people love to laugh at, even though the paperwork showed something way smaller. On record, it was just another low-level case that prosecutors kept pulling out whenever they wanted to paint him as a threat. And while that clip kept traveling online, life moved on. Fast. Just 3 years later, and over 2,000 miles away, Gainesville, Georgia became the center of what Newsweek later called his open season year. On February 29, 2016, officers showed up and found him lying face down outside a pool supply store, hands behind his back like he already expected the cuffs. An employee claimed a verbal argument turned into Katt tossing something that hit him. Within days, Hall County investigators said that same employee deserved restitution, and a Georgia judge eventually ordered Katt to cover the damages in that case. Even then, the headlines kept zeroing in on the wild visual. A world-known comedian laying himself on the sidewalk like he already knew the routine, a surreal moment that the media replayed over and over. But once you actually dig into the court filings, the whole narrative gets way more twisted. The toughest accusations from that period didn't even come from a store employee. They came from someone inside his own circle.
Baltimore comedian Reggie Carroll has been shot in Mississippi. He was 52. Reggie Carroll was fondly known as the knockout king of comedy, was reportedly shot last week. The alleged shooting incident took place in South.
Hall County officials reported that during the first week of March 2016, bodyguard Corey Dixon told deputies he was dragged into a garage, hit with a bat by other associates, and threatened after refusing what he called an illegal request. Authorities claimed in their statements that Katt was there, that he made threats, and that a search of his home northeast of Atlanta uncovered a large amount of a green substance along with several firearms. That immediately sparked talk about possible extra substance and weapons charges stacking on top of aggravated assault, terroristic threat, and false imprisonment accusations. National outlets ran with the most dramatic angle they could find. A superstar turned loose cannon, supposedly trapping his own staff inside a private property like something out of a movie. It was the kind of story that spreads fast, even before the facts settle. But when you track what happened in the months that followed, the case slowly shrinks. Quiet plea negotiations start happening, deals get signed, and by December 2016, the final outcome is way smaller than the headline suggested. He gets barred from Hall and Dawson counties, ordered to pay restitution, and assigned community service instead of any multi-year bid. That early coverage made everything feel like the chaos was unavoidable, like this was the only way his story could go. But to understand how the public even got to that point, we gotta rewind all the way back to November 9th, 2008. That night, Atlanta police showed up at a high-end steakhouse just hours after Katt finished his set at the Fox Theater. Local reports said businessman Marion Powers accused Katt of hitting him with a bottle, injuring him so badly he went to the hospital, then filing a civil suit for around $3.5 million for what he claimed were physical injuries and emotional distress. But the 5 people eating inside that restaurant said something totally different to investigators and to civil attorneys. They said the businessman walked up to Katt's table, insulted him, mentioned his family, and got all in his personal space before any table flipped or glass broke. And when you check how that lawsuit played out, with no huge judgment and no criminal record sticking, it starts lining up with a pattern courthouse news highlighted in more than 11 assault-related filings tied to him over the years. A confrontation, a claim, a big number on the complaint, and then either a settlement or dismissal that never gets half the attention of the first headline. Take the Atlanta case from 2016, for example. 4 women accused Katt and over a dozen people from his entourage of pointing a weapon at them, roughing them up, and snatching their phones after an argument about photos during NBA All-Star Weekend. Their attorney, LHA Hale, told reporters her clients were illegally held and physically attacked. Interviews and write-ups later framed it as just another incident in a year already full of fights, court dates, and swirling cases. But here's what barely made the news. Almost 9 years later, a federal judge quietly dismissed the civil suit, saying the claims weren't legally strong enough. And even while that ruling was being filed, another outlet reminded readers that Katt's name had already been attached to at least 11 other civil assault situations, proving how fast accusations travel and how slow the cleanup ever reaches the public. In that same courthouse news archive, the public memory left behind is shaped almost totally by the earliest headlines, while the actual court files tell a way more complicated story about what could be proven and what couldn't. That clash between reputation and real outcomes shows up again when you break down his criminal calendar across different states. The AJC arrest log tracks his run-ins with police all the way back to June 2011 in Los Angeles, where he was accused of witness intimidation but never charged. It also lists a 2009 burglary accusation in Coweta County that never went to trial.
There is a God side and the other side. If there are moral things and things that are immoral, if there is this side or that side, it can't be left up to thought process. I'm an enforcer on this side.
Wikipedia adds more entries, like a 2012 Oakland tour bus situation involving an 18-year-old and a December 2012 case in Los Angeles labeled as child endangerment, where 4 adopted kids were briefly placed under protective supervision before the case collapsed completely. Nothing long-term ever stuck. Then there was the 2014 Beverly Hills camera incident with Suge Knight, which ended with a no contest plea and no major sentence. By the time 2018 rolled around, the list included an Oregon arrest tied to a dispute with a driver, a Georgia warrant connected to an alleged restaurant altercation, and more complaints involving thrown phones and damaged cars. All of it fed the narrative that he was a man spiraling nonstop, even though the paperwork behind the scenes kept telling a much less dramatic story. But when Newsweek took a fresh look at his record in March 2024, the tone shifted hard. Instead of painting him as some unstoppable threat, their feature described him as a performer who got arrested at least 4 times within 6 months in 2016, yet still managed to beat or soften most of those charges. That alone changed the whole angle. Newsweek also pointed out how wild his rebound was. They highlighted his 2018 Netflix special Great America and his Emmy-winning role on Atlanta as proof that audiences and major producers never fully walked away from him. Even with all those cases floating around his name, he still pulled off one of the most unexpected comebacks in recent comedy history. Even while judges in Georgia were still arguing over restitution and county bans, that same split showed up in his bank life too. In 2020, Fox Los Angeles reported that a California judge ordered him to pay over $200,000 in damages in a civil assault case involving a woman who said she was hurt at a party. But by 2024, industry insiders estimated his net worth had bounced right back into 8-figure territory thanks to non-stop touring and crowd-pulling shows. So the question becomes real simple. Was this whole mountain of cases the story of one unpredictable man dealing with the fallout of quick decisions? Or was it the story of a high-earning target getting dragged into every messy situation within 20 feet of his name? Courthouse reporters say their database holds at least 11 civil suits since 2008 that mention some version of him allegedly directing or allowing violence, and the complaints almost always include entourage members, security, or party guests. That makes it way too easy for old associates to point at him as the leader, even when nobody can prove he threw a single hit. Vice and other outlets pointed out something else too: the dollar amounts. Huge numbers kept showing up in these complaints, from the Atlanta steakhouse accusation to the multi-woman Midtown filing to later suits asking for tens of millions over chaotic party nights. Yet almost all of them ended up scaled down, settled quietly, or dismissed altogether years later. And when you look at it like that, his own public comments about beating charges and getting arrested dozens of times without long bookings start sounding different. It doesn't read like bragging. It feels more like someone fed up with a system that only blasts the first headline and never sticks around for the part where the story collapses or gets corrected. At the same time, there are moments even his most loyal supporters can't flip into something positive, and they sit on his timeline like quiet landmines waiting to explode again. One of the clearest examples is the April 27, 2016 salt shaker situation in Atlanta. According to the LA Times and local stations, a restaurant manager said he ended up with a bloody lip after asking Katt to switch tables, which led to Katt getting booked for battery and eventually dragged back in front of a Georgia judge over property issues and probation rules. Then came the September 15, 2016 Fulton County arrest, tied to a February report claiming he tossed a man's cell phone. That one showed how even the smallest heated moment was now being turned into a full legal case. Something that wouldn't happen to anyone who didn't already have a controversial name attached to them.
Reggie was a wild boy. Katt is a wild boy. Something happened where Reggie didn't make it home. He got ambushed, y'all. I know.
By the end of 2016, after a judge banned him from multiple counties and stacked community service hours on top, AJC writers were openly questioning how long any promoter would keep putting him on a billboard. It was a rough look. But even in that pressure cooker, there were signs that judges and juries weren't completely sold on the idea of him being some one-note aggressor. Fox 10 and other outlets covering the Gainesville pool store case pointed out that while he had to pay restitution and stay out of certain areas, prosecutors still tossed the heavier counts and agreed to a negotiated plea that kept him out of prison. That's not the outcome they would have accepted if they thought the whole story matched the headlines. And that same pattern shows up again and again in other states, especially when courts have to line up sensational accusations with actual evidence. When a federal judge finally dismissed the Midtown Atlanta women's lawsuit this month, years after Vice turned it into the unofficial symbol of his 2016 chaos, it highlighted how slow the system is when it comes to cleaning up a public image after the outrage machine has already moved on. And as long as we keep finding out that some of the loudest, most explosive accusations didn't end with any crushing verdict, but instead with quiet dismissals or sealed settlements, the doubt keeps growing. It starts looking less like pure chaos and more like strategy, a setup that keeps Katt Williams stuck on defense every time he gets close to flipping the mess into real leverage. Once you see that, even his public feuds with other comedians stop looking like simple roasting. They start feeling like another layer in a long, messy battle for space in an industry that doesn't like voices that won't fall in line. In that Club Shishi episode, he didn't call Cedric the Entertainer a walrus just for a punchline. He dropped a full timeline claiming Cedric saw him do a specific joke in a club back in the day and then pulled a version of it for the Kings of Comedy taping. That hit different. Cedric shot back in interviews and online posts, calling Katt's version revisionist history and insisting the bit was his. But here's the part that stands out. He never filed a lawsuit, no demand for damages, no claim of defamation, nothing that would force the story into a courtroom where facts get tested. That silence speaks loud. Same pattern with Steve Harvey. Katt accused him of building a whole TV persona after studying Mark Curry's Mr. Cooper swagger and copying the high-top fade blueprint. Steve answered with a full sermon-style response about not reacting to haters, quoting scripture about tables prepared in the presence of enemies. It was poetic, dramatic, and polished. But once again, he filed no lawsuit, no discovery, no sworn depositions, no push for the truth under oath. We keep getting interviews about jealousy, respect, and industry rules. But what we never see is a defamation lawsuit filed under oath. If everything Katt said was pure fantasy, stolen jokes, blocked careers, hidden alliances, why has no one marched into a courtroom and said, "Prove it"? That silence hits loud. Instead, we see something different. Cedric, Steve, and Ricky Smiley moving like a small alliance, popping up on each other's shows, downplaying Katt's success, calling him bitter, calling him unstable, yet staying miles away from any place where lying can cost real money. That avoidance says a lot. And then there are the people who quietly appreciated what he exposed. Bernie Mac's daughter, Janice McCullough, went online after his interview and thanked him for saying what she believed was the truth about how her father was treated. She said she watched folks suddenly praise Bernie only after he passed, but Katt's version matched what she heard at home. That was powerful. That detail matters because while some comedians attack Katt for breaking the unspoken "don't talk" rule, the family of the man he defended publicly stood with him. It fits another pattern insiders mention. The ones who benefited from the system get mad at him, and the ones who were chewed up by it see him as the only person brave enough to say out loud what everyone else whispers backstage. But the story turns way darker once we leave the studio and land on Burton Lane in South Haven, Mississippi. In late August 2024, comedian Reggie Carroll, a respected road veteran who worked clubs nationwide, appeared on Showtime at the Apollo and performed with Monique, was shot outside a house tied to Katt's business interests. Police found Carroll badly wounded and rushed him to a Memphis hospital, where he later passed. Within days, officers arrested 38-year-old Trill Ortel Marquise Williams, a man local outlets linked to Katt's security team on the Heaven on Earth tour, and charged him in connection with the shooting. This is where the known facts stop and the pressure starts. City records showed the property doubled as the listed location for a clothing line connected to Katt. Right after the shooting, authorities slapped a 14-day eviction notice on the door for criminal activity. Meanwhile, Carroll's own social media from earlier in the year showed him on tour with Katt, smiling in green rooms and standing backstage. No sign of any tension at all. His brother and fellow comics described him as a steady, drama-free presence. Monique called him "my brother in comedy" and posted a heartfelt tribute about their last joyful time on the road together. Then another comedian, Billy Els, stepped in with emotional videos that flipped everything into a direct accusation. Looking straight into the camera, he asked, "Why did Reggie Carroll pass outside your house?" and demanded to know why there was, in his words, silence from the man whose tour Reggie had been working. He claimed he had paperwork tying Katt's manager and the arrested security guard to the same address, framing the tragedy as something that didn't just happen near Katt's world, but right on his doorstep. He kept saying that Katt built his whole name on being the truth teller, the guy who exposes everybody else's secrets, and claimed that if 2024 was really the year of truth, then Katt needed to explain what happened on Burton Lane. The pressure was heavy, but law enforcement never linked Katt to any wrongdoing in that case. Their statement stayed focused on the suspect, the property, and the investigation only. No charges against Katt, no warrant saying he ordered anything, no hint that he condoned harm. Still, the public read it differently. In the news cycle, his name gets dropped right next to security guard and slaying, and suddenly the eviction notice tied to the property becomes part of the narrative, letting the algorithm twist everything into a brand new scandal. What started as a heartbreaking loss for Carroll's family has already been folded into another Katt Williams drama. It becomes one more piece in a bigger picture that paints him as chaotic and dangerous, whether the facts support it or not. And when you stack that next to his past warnings about comedians being left unprotected, it hits even harder. He once said that after the Wanda Smith radio clash, her husband came at him with a weapon in an Atlanta parking lot. And because he refused to press charges and send a man to prison, it created a culture where people thought it was okay to run up on comedians. In his mind, that decision gave would-be attackers the confidence to try more. Now, years later, another comedian is shot outside a property tied to his tour, allegedly by someone hired to protect performers, not hurt them. And fans online are asking the question out loud: has the chaos around Katt finally slipped into something he can't control anymore? Or maybe something even uglier is happening here, because there's a question we can't dodge anymore. If a comedian can call out a mogul's downfall, clash with the so-called kings of his field, and still end up connected to a tour tragedy that makes no public sense, what are we really watching? Is this one chaotic man losing control, or a quiet campaign designed to make him look too radioactive for anyone to believe? In Hollywood, breaking unwritten rules is one thing, but forcing the people who created those rules to face tough questions on camera is a whole different problem. So what do you think? Is Katt Williams a reckless instigator finally facing consequences, or a rare truth teller being boxed in until his voice gets buried? Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment your thoughts, and see you on the next one.